Hi, Ben.
Hey, Neil, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. So,
Nice. Yeah, so making a few edits to the CD or the connecting events proposal.
yeah.
I added the one use case that I thought that was really important. And then I also added a hybrid approach section because we talked a little bit about that. And I think a hybrid approach might be the best solution, but we can talk about that once we get started.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Hi, Fatih.
Hey,
Let's see if some more people join us.
Yep. Hey, everyone.
Andrea will not join us today. He's on PTO. Let's wait another minute and see if more people join. Okay, I think it's about time to start. I can share my screen just. There we go. So, welcome. CDEvents meeting today, February 21st. Please sign up on the notes. So I have more or less the same agenda as we usually have. I've added the ongoing items as links here, and then you're free to add whatever you want as well in the end. Let's see about how we can proceed on this. So first, just look into the roadmap here. We have it as a reference link mostly. Last week we should have had the release we had planned originally, like in mid-February, but we prolonged it now to the end of February. I'm a bit concerned, as you might understand, that we might not reach this either, especially now since Andrea is on PTO this week. And we have a lot of things to cover still, which are in to do. Most of them are actually on assigned to Andrea. Some are not, but there is some work involved, and I'm pretty sure we will not reach this. Yeah, we'll probably come back to the SDKs a bit later on as well. But as you see, there are a number of tickets ongoing, and some are not really started. And I've also created some new ones. Some bugs have been created here. Some of them are my fault for creating. But anyway, they need to be done. So there is no real need to rush this release. We don't have any such fixed deadline that require us to release it this week or next week. The thing is that we want to have a release close to the CDCon, so we can show off the most recent things when we are there presenting. So it might, I don't know, it might be so that we prolong this until then, but I would hope that we can have a 0.2 release now and then a 0.3 release close to CDCon. But we'll see how it works out. Okay, so we had some action items from previous meetings. One on Andrea had created an issue about the formal release process. I haven't seen, but we have such an issue. I don't think that is done. Ben, you said just before that you are about to write some use cases and you have already done that.
Yep.
So maybe we can, I don't know, do you want to keep this as an action for coming weeks, or should we?
No. I wrapped up. There was only one really big use case that was, I think, important to capture, and I wrote that one. So yeah, that should be done.
Yeah, we can consider it done, and we can come back to it when we are there. And then Andrea had, of course, an action on the connecting events part to add some details about tracing context, and I don't know if he has done that, so we can maybe see that when we come into it.
Yeah, I saw some changes to the trace context. So I do think he did make some modifications to it, but I don't know.
Here's something. I'm not
I don't know
exactly
if he made
sure
that
what
much.
we said. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what was the definition of downside say for that action. So
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
maybe this is good enough. But maybe he can answer on that when he's back next week or next time.
All right, sounds good.
So if we just take the different ongoing items in order, we can look into the incident events first. There has been some discussions in this pull request back and forth. I made some comments late last week, and I'm pretty sure Andrea didn't have time to look into those before he left for holidays. So there are some things to be done here still. I think Matthias has also requested changes. I'm not sure if there's an outstanding actually needs from him then, but that's about it. And I had some questions, something, so it requires some more work on this, I would say, before it can be there. And this is maybe the main reason for the 0.2 release, as far as I can see, at least, that we want to have it as soon as possible. So because this is what lacks to be able to fulfill the DORA metrics, the 4 core DORA metrics. So we really need this for that release. So there's no really need to release CDEvents without having this in place, I would say. Then we can go to connected events then. So let's see, we are here. This is the Academy document where we discuss this. We don't have any, maybe we have an issue for it, but we have at least until now discussed this through the Academy document. And I think that's perfectly fine. So let me just see here. I see Robert has joined us as well. Good. Hi, Robert.
Hello, my friends. How are you?
Yes. Good. So Ben, would you like to let us?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to use case, so I added this last use case, which I think is kind of like the end. Like this is what I see people doing with CDEvents in the kind of like in the future, like not like the immediate future, but since CDEvents, is about interoperability, you're going to have CI/CD systems that are going to be, kind of be able to be plugged into various different other CI/CD systems, right? These individual parts could be just plugged in. However, every one of these systems is going to have their own UI. So it would be great if there could be a singular UI that understands CDEvents, as well as being able to make sense of everything by using links, for instance, linking these events to show connections between all these systems. So I think that's where the biggest benefit would be had here is this use case.
All right.
So yeah. Yep. And then added one section towards the bottom. It's still pretty I don't know, not really filled out, but the other section I added was a hybrid approach, which I think I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think this is going to be the best approach. So the reason why I say this, so if we go with trace context, right, that adds a huge dependency for CDEvents, and I don't really like that. And what I like about Eiffel is that it's very it's small, and it solves one particular problem. I mean, so does tracing, but tracing does more than what we need it to, right? Like you can add tags and whatnot, which I feel like CDEvents would already have with like custom data and everything. So it's kind of like being redundant there. So I think keeping something simple like with Eiffel, and then just utilizing that global ID that we talked about last week, Emil, would be the perfect solution. And this kind of solves both problems with, the fast lookups, but also giving you the graph capabilities. So I want to flesh this section out more. Like I want to show like what I think this should look like. And then I think once Andrea's back, I can attend the next SIG meeting at 5 a.m. and we can just finalize a decision. But I really think this hybrid approach is going to be the best one going forward. So that's kind of like where I'm at, because like I said, like the last like week when we talked about that, I've been thinking about what the benefits is, and then I started thinking, oh, we could use Eiffel, but like if we use Eiffel by itself, this UI use case is going to be really expensive whenever you have like thousands of users trying to look up like what their flow looked like. That's going to be really expensive. So I was like, okay, maybe we can still do the global ID thing with Eiffel, and then so that's kind of like where I landed. So it's been kind of an ongoing process with the whole thinking, but yeah,
I think it's an interesting thought. I'm still a bit uncertain what you really mean with the global ID, where it will really be instantiated, where it will be created, who has control of when a new global ID is created and such things.
Right. And I think that's definitely a fair question, but I think we should leave this up to the users, I think, of when those things are created or not. For instance, like when you use tracing, so this is kind of like piggybacking on how tracing solves this particular problem, is they leave it up to the users. So they do a best effort on trying to guess what you want, but I don't think we need to go that crazy. I think we can just say, maybe it's just if you want a new global ID, you just call this one function and you're done. Or like maybe you put like in Java, maybe it's just like an annotation that you do, like anytime it enters this method or whatever, it just instantly creates this global ID. I think having it be driven by users is going to be the best bet, because this gives the ability for a UI to be molded and shaped to like what someone wants to view, right? So this part, letting the users drive that versus us, I think is really, really important. And I think trying to solve both of those is going to really complicate the solution. So I think just having the users define that keeps things simple. And like how tracing works, and gives the necessary benefits of the global ID. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking.
Yeah, of course. I mean, how to create a global ID might not be the thing that we should decide on here. That's not what I mean. So of course there could be different ways to create an ID, but I was more thinking, if you have like one step in your pipeline that is totally triggered by an event, and not orchestrated by some high level pipeline orchestration engine. So for example, you have a testing process that you would like to kick off whenever some artifact has been built somewhere.
Right.
So then that testing process, it could either take the global ID from the triggering event, that is then the artifact created event, or it could take it from some other location where it knows that, well, I'm part of this flow, so therefore my coming events should always have this global ID. Or do you consider it to be, I mean, in that event-driven scenario, that the global ID should always flow from the upstream events, let's say, into the new events?
Yes. So my thinking was always upstream, whatever's triggering. Because like that, I think that makes the most sense.
And then if you would have like one test activity wanting to run if either this or that artifact has been created, for example, it's two different artifacts maybe that is being deployed in the same environment, and then those artifacts might have different global IDs then in them.
Right. But those would be two separate. Yeah, but those would be two separate triggers, though, right?
No, it doesn't need to. I mean, it could be just an OR relationship. If this event comes, or if an event comes with its artifact ID and another event comes with its artifact ID, then we should start this testing. I'm just trying to figure. I think there are such edge cases where it's not it's not uniquely identifiable what exact global ID to always use.
Right,
That's why
right,
I'm
right.
trying to get it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see your point. You know, because like you're saying, like if these artifacts were grouped somehow, you'd like to like those things grouped. It's kind of like what you're getting at. Which is completely fair. You know, and I think honestly, the question is whether or not that's important. Is it like I don't know. Let me
No,
think about that.
I might be a bit colored by the way of thinking in Eiffel there, because I think one way to solve that, I guess, when I think of it myself now, is like you could have like an SBOM or something saying that this is now the baseline of this test environment that I want to run some tests in, and that test environment has an SBOM of these two input artifacts or something like that. So then it's like the SBOM object creation that sets maybe the global ID for the continued process in this pipeline or something like that.
Right. Okay, so
yeah.
I'm thinking about this like from the UI use case, and I think it makes sense for the upstream thing to trigger it, and that would be its own global ID. And then the UI, if it wants to go one extra step forward, could maybe utilize like links, like actually the graph traversal, like if it wants to make that expensive call to relate all the artifacts. Does that make sense?
I guess so, because then if there is, a new global ID, let's say, created somewhere in the middle of the pipeline, but there's still like links connecting these pipelines to each other, then the visualization or the UI there could follow those links in that case, and the global IDs in other cases, maybe.
Yes, exactly. So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's why the hybrid approach works, is because like it definitely, like links is like good for like, you know, like if you actually want to see like relationships between like, you know, like all the events, especially with these crazy like forks and whatnot. But with the global ID, what's nice about that is it's that quick lookup. So I think like when you want more information on how things relate, then you utilize you go with Eiffel, right? Like especially like when you know things are going to be detached, like for instance, like when artifacts, you know, because you lose that grouping. So when you know that grouping is going to be lost, you know, then that's when you'd use Eiffel versus a global ID. And I think we can state that in the hybrid approach, right? So we can come up with these use cases where it's questionable, and then answer that, and then show that in diagrams, as well as like what the payload, or you know, what the model or spec would look like. And I think, you know, that can be an action item for me, so I can flush this out more with that particular issue that you laid out, which I definitely see the issue there. But yeah, I think this definitely could be solved with just utilizing either Eiffel or you know, or global ID, choosing whichever one you want to use to look up the relationship between things.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a use case which I believe is solved by trace context or parent-child trace IDs somehow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen this before from the Honeycomb GitHub site. And this is where, as I understand it, it's only using trace context with parent-child relationships.
Yeah.
And it can anyway distinguish from parallel and serial activities based on, I guess, then the end timestamps of these activities. So if the next activity is started after the previous one has finished, they are assumed to be serial. If the next one is started before the previous one was finished, then it's assumed to be in parallel executing with that one. I think that's how it's interpreted. And then a UI could probably handle it that way. And with that, we don't really need the links to show this or to visualize this scenario of a top level pipeline, and then it's different steps underneath it, both in parallel and serial. So that's also a way to handle the what should I say? Maybe not really the fan in, fan out scenario, but at least the progression through a pipeline.
Right.
It's not really possible to say. I mean, for example, if these two things here are different builds, for example, and then these two are different test activities for the corresponding builds, it's not really easy to see that the first one corresponds to the first build and the second test corresponds to the second build, or vice versa. you can't really say that from this just having a parent-child relationship, I guess. Then you would need some kind of link saying that, yeah, this actual
these are
test
connected.
activity relates to this actual build activity and such things.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah,
So-
I'm very familiar with tracing. So yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense, and that's exactly how tracing works. Is that
So-
you have
what
this.
I'm trying to get, sorry, what I'm trying to get at is maybe we would need also this kind of parent-child relationship in these IDs. Would that be any benefit, you think, to have possibility to like spawn off a child ID?
Yeah, potentially. But I want to keep this. So my whole goal is like I'm a very much an iterative type of person. So like I want to get the kind of like the foundation good, and maybe the parent child could be in that foundation, but I think that can be an additive feature later. I just want to get the like just making sure that it's scalable is my number one thing for me, as well as being able to visualize these things in a graph, like as an end consumer. And definitely I think a parent and child ID definitely makes sense. If you want to do even further grouping, but like I said, that can get pretty crazy pretty quickly. Actually, when I was working with tracing, that got very complicated very quickly. And like there's a lot of places where that could go wrong. And actually, a lot of our bugs have come from creating bad children and not relating them properly. So that's a little bit of my concern with introducing that, especially now, where we don't know if we need it just yet. However, if someone starts saying, "Oh, we actually need this feature," then I think we should probably add it. However, for our particular use case, especially for this UI one, I don't need it. So I think I'm happy to leave it out. And then if we need to add an addendum to the proposal later, we can always do that. How do you feel about that, Emil?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We can start here, and then of course we can elaborate on child IDs in like in custom data, for example, to begin with, or something like that. Just to try it if we need it or not.
Yeah,
I want
definitely.
just to throw out another idea here, or another thought. Now you're talking a lot about the UI part there and making sense of the data that comes out of the pipeline as a UI. I mean, looking, I would call it like a follow your commit, when you see what happens with your commits through the pipeline, regardless of what tool actually emits those events.
Done it. Yeah,
but
exactly.
there is also another use case which is not UI related, but it's instead AI or machine learning related, that you would want to make sense of the pipeline and maybe predict what should happen next step in a pipeline and such things, and what tests should you perform, because this kind of commit that comes in often fails this test case down there or something. So does any one of you in the meeting now had any experience or any connections to like AI people who would have some thoughts on whether it's beneficial to use these explicit links between the events or to use global parent-child IDs, if so?
I could get some information from AI people if needed. Actually, I have a meeting not this week, next week, with someone from machine learning at Apple that I can ask them. But what's a particular, just like which they would probably use, or what's the question?
Yeah, what model of connecting events would be most beneficial to the AI ML industry?
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Those use cases.
I can definitely ask. Yeah, let me write down all the stuff I need to do, and then
I don't know. I think we had like an ML STIG before. Is that there still, or has it been swallowed up by some other work, or just ended? Does anyone know? Fatih, do you remember? Didn't we have an ML STIG somehow in CDS?
Okay. Huh. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that thing. Okay, but yeah, I'll get some information. It's the meeting is like middle of next week, so I'll probably get some information towards the end of the week, and then I can update, or I can at least post in the Slack channel, like like what they would prefer and whatnot, or I can add it to the GitHub issue, whichever is preferable, where these discussions or these ideas or contemplations would be best. Yeah, I can put it wherever appropriate.
Yeah. See, we have an MLOps SIG actually still. At least there's a Slack channel for it. There seems to be some activity there.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe we
should
just
reach
throw in,
out to that group
yeah.
as well. Might be because I think people who are more involved in ML would be more. We could have some valuable input to this discussion. I would guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. So I didn't really write down any notes for this now. Maybe I should have done that.
Yeah, no worries.
But did you say you would?
Yeah. I'll
have to
fill
do
in
some things here.
Yeah. I'll fill in what I was supposed to do here. Let's see. And then, okay, ask. Oh, let's put.
Maybe I should have an action to reach out to ML folks about this. See if there's anything. I can take that action. Or you have your ML people in Apple then?
Yeah. We can both
Yeah.
ask. Yeah, I think that works.
Good. Good. So anything else we should say about the connecting events discussion then?
No, I think we're pretty good. I think we're kind of like getting towards the a place to choose,
Start.
especially especially like with this hybrid section. I think this is, like I said, I have a feeling this is what we're gonna probably end up choosing, but definitely getting, like I said, getting more information from other people like about their use cases, I think is gonna be really helpful in determining that. So yeah.
That's good. So I think we can leave it at that then. Now, then for the testing events, there is this pull request created by Ole some time ago. I made some comments on this as well, and I don't think those are handled. So, and I think Ole is also away this week. So I would expect him to come back to these comments next week or later. We had last week a presentation from Bruno on what TestCube is about. And if you weren't there, you can listen to the recording afterwards. Should be on YouTube now, I believe. So I don't have much more to say about these testing events. Again, I think there are some things remaining here to be solved before these can be merged. That's for that. Then we can just visit the tools integration board that we have. I don't know if there's much that has happened here really. The Java SDK has been merged now, you can see. So there is a Java SDK to be used. I think this is done for 0.1 release, of course, of CDEvents. So this can now start to be used by Jenkins folks, for example, and by Spinnaker. That's good. Jenkins 6, we don't have anything there marked as Jenkins 6. In Spinnaker, maybe you have more information there than on the progress on the integration of the RFC.
Oh, yeah, I just added a section on that, but yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I was just gonna
Yeah,
link.
okay. Yeah, okay. We can.
Yeah.
Let's take it now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Spinnaker RFC. So Jalander just made an update a few days ago to the RFC. So he asked me to look at it. So I'm gonna take a look at it probably sometime this week. So I think we're at a pretty good place with that. So once I give the review, my plan is to actually talk to some of the Spinnaker folks to see like where, like how much more do we need to flesh this out before we decide to accept it. Where I think as long as, he addressed most of our comments, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue to get that merged in. But yeah, because I think the biggest thing was just, referencing. So one of the biggest things is talking about the implementation details in Spinnaker. So before he was just talking about the overall design, but there's a particular microservice that we wanted him to mention and utilize and document. And he it looks like he's made those updates. So so task for me, action item for me is to review that and then hopefully get that merged in soonish.
Cool. Looking forward to that. Perfect. Yeah, that's the Spinnaker work. And then the actual implementation is this then that is supposed to be done there, I guess. I guess this refers to the actual implementation then.
Oh, it's the RFC or is it? Oh, it's actually
it's
implementing.
RFC again.
Yeah.
Okay, is it?
Okay.
Oh, it's the same. Okay. Strange. Okay. Then in Tecton, I don't think we have anything. No. Shipwright, none. Persia. Oh, Rust SDK, yeah. That's for Persia, sure. I don't know if anyone is volunteering to start working on the Rust SDK.
Is there any
think
CI/CD
so.
system that uses Rust?
Yeah, Persia does.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Interesting.
There is, I can recommend the, what is it? The Techstrom TV show about Persia that was launched in December, I believe, last year. Where it was discussed, and also one of the head maintainers of Rust itself was there in that screencast.
Yeah, okay.
TV show. It was quite good actually. Then TestCube is what we talked about, where we had a presentation last week. Testing events are ongoing there. And this is after all. So yeah, that's the status of the ongoing activities. And the Spinnaker RFC we already mentioned. When it comes to the SDKs, I can bring up the board here again, this one. I had contact with the maintainer or the author of the Python SDK, Eric. And unfortunately, he has been very busy with other things, so hasn't been able to prioritize this. And it seems he will still be for a couple of weeks. He is about to change jobs, it seems. But I asked him if he will be able to work, help out with this after he has changed jobs. And he said that, yeah, his new employer actually was very fond of him contributing to this. So it looks promising. So we should hope that he can come back in more strength to continue working on the Python SDK. But unless someone else in the CDEvents community takes on this, I guess nothing will happen on it. Not much, at least, in the coming few weeks or few months even.
One thing too,
yeah.
Since we mentioned a Rust SDK, I think now that since whenever we start the Rust road, if you will, for that SDK or whatever new SDK, I think it's important at that point to use a schema to generate SDKs. because I've noticed like anytime we made change to a spec, it's like, Andrea has to go make all these changes to like the Go SDK, and then someone has to go update the Java SDK, and then so on and so forth for the Python SDK. I think it'd be really nice if we could just change it in one place, have that be generated, and then, fix any of the compile errors that, that introduce the new features or what have you, right? So
You mean like a code generator with the
Yes.
schemas as the base?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not sure if that's really existing. Yeah, Robert?
Well, we struggled with this at Liquibase, and what we have is basically a prototype that it's a structure that we use to generate this stuff for everything from Java SDK, GitHub Actions, those sorts of things. So the person that's in charge of GitHub Actions would go to that prototype and say, okay, what's changed, and generate their code. So each SDK is utilizing a kind of single source of truth. That's how we've done it at Liquibase.
So
yeah,
what programming language are you using there then for the SDKs?
Well, we've got, we certainly have Java. We're using it also internally for all the tooling that we built that calls core Liquibase. So that's a lot of Java. But it's for other things, like I said, GitHub Actions, generating those.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and see. Let me go ahead and pull it up and see, and get some more details on it. I'll share with you.
I guess it would put some requirements on our source then. I mean, on the JSON files schema themselves.
Yeah,
and
it's
conform
just
to certain standards.
Yeah, and exactly. And you would certainly, you'd be very naughty to change it. There's a commitment. But where we've had success, everybody at Liquibase said, wow, that's a great idea. But it was always like number 4, 5, or 6 on the priority scale. And what really pushed it over was that somebody took it and implemented it for their stuff. They were in charge of a specific API, I forget which one, and they did it and they got it done in record time. And there's a little bit of FOMO. The other teams were like, well, I would have used that. So by having an example of that, let me check it out real quick.
Yeah, I think to scale, like as CDEvents, like as an org, like you need to generate, like you're like you said, like Python. Your guy has been really busy, right? That maintains the Python SDK. But if you guys could just generate and fix the, like compilers or runtime errors, that's really simple, right?
It sounds easy enough, but I'm not sure if it is that easy. Just
the generation portion is going to be very, that's going to require some thought. That's definitely going to require some thought. It's going to require some technical prowess to do this. But I think spending the time now banging your head against the wall will save you much more time later.
It would be good to see if there are any such, or what, of course there are them. Some good
there's
generators of such SDKs.
Open API is a pretty big one that I would recommend. There's also Smithy. That's also pretty, it's used heavily at AWS. And then Open API is also part of Swagger, or Swagger is a part of Open API. So there's also that. So yeah, there's definitely a few tooling there.
But Open API, does it use JSON as its source format, or?
I think you can
YAML,
provide
right?
JSON. I think it's YAML, but I think you can provide JSON if you choose. And open
thought,
and then Open API is really pluggable too, so like you can add your own custom things to it. Heavily I just want to add some notes. Heavily used in AWS. Used everywhere.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, sure. But I haven't really seen that it generates SDKs, but maybe that's
it does. Yes.
Well. Oh,
yeah. So it does. Typically, so So at AWS, when I was there, we used our own internal thing. It's called Coral. But eventually we moved to Smithy. But some teams were using Open API. So you know, yeah, you can totally generate SDKs, and some even Open API has a SDK generator on top of it, but you probably don't want to use that, or you probably want to have your own custom plugin in that and then utilize that tool, but it does have its own custom SDK generator.
Because I remember Andreas said in the beginning when he first created the initial JSON schemas for CDEvents, he actually generated the schemas from the Go SDK itself. So it's the other way around then.
Yeah, you can
so
also do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's the first thing. But then, of course, if it's easy to generate SDKs on different program languages based on the schemas, that's even better. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so Open API does support JSON, so it's JSON or YAML. So may need to do a little bit of tweaking there, but it's definitely possible to do this. But like I said, it's going to require a little bit more thinking. But I feel like we're now at a point where we have a few SDKs where this actually could start being pretty beneficial.
One thing with JSON, obviously there is a limitation in the JSON format that you can't really have comments in.
Yeah, that's
so if you would
decision.
if you would generate a well-documented SDK from a JSON schema specification, you will not have any documentation at all in that SDK. It would just be raw.
I bet you it's a separate field or something like that. Like
yeah, maybe, but if it was YAML instead, of course, then it's possible to add whatever you want. So yeah, but that's an interesting thought. Strange, I haven't really thought about that so much before that. Yeah, I thought it was not really feasible, but maybe it is then. I bet there might then be some kind of glue layer on top of it so that we will need to somehow update, but not then for each version of the schema.
So yeah. So what these SDKs would generate is basically a very rudimentary view or like APIs, if you will. And then what you would want to do is to, like you were saying, is add glue or make higher level abstractions to make it easier for users. But like I said, if the schema is changing and whatnot, that you don't have to change these abstractions, right? You might have to just do very little. So yeah, I think this could go a long way for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's actually very good because it would also put good requirements on the schemas themselves.
Yep.
That they are conform to a certain standard, and we cannot really deviate from that.
Exactly. And to make sure all the SDKs are, exactly, on the same spec, which is really nice.
For sure. Yeah, that's a very good thought. And I invite anyone who has some time and energy to spend on it to look into what options there are.
I've done a lot of code generation. I will have to ask my manager though if I can do any work on it. Like the problem is like anytime I had touched anything code outside of Apple, like except for like approved things, we're still trying to figure out like the whole CDEvents with our team. I need to ask, but if I can get a yes or no, I'll immediately tell, or I'll post in the Slack whether or not I can work on this. But if I can get some time, like I can absolutely knock this out pretty quickly, or quickly-ish.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not at all against, for example, moving from JSON to YAML for our schemas, if that's a better option for us, just to be able to make better code generation or SDK generation.
I think you should move to YAML just to have comments in your spec, to be honest.
Yeah,
but that's
one thing. I totally agree. And we actually did the same thing in Eiffel recently. We actually moved from JSON to YAML as the core the schema spec for us in Eiffel, because there we also then have the documentation as part of the schema. So we generate markdown documentation from those YAML files as well. Which is
definitely
quite beneficial. Yeah, so that's I would embrace that as well, but it requires again someone to
work.
To work on it. Yeah, of course. Good. Thanks, Robert, for asking as well. We look forward to the updates.
Oh yeah, I wish I had a definitive answer, but I'll let you know when I get one.
Sure, no problem. Good, great. That was good input, I think. Good ideas, good thoughts. So I don't have anything else planned in the agenda, so it's up for any comments or discussions you would like to bring up. Do you have any?
Ben, there was an update on the spec for CDEvents and Spinnaker.
Yep.
You were on the meeting.
Yeah.
So my update is that you went to a meeting. But anyway, just is there anything I can help with that? Like it seems like it's going really, really well. I just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah. So things are moving along well. So Jalander, the one that is the author of the RC, just made the necessary changes that we had asked from the meeting that you had just mentioned. So it looks like he addressed those comments. That was done just a few days ago, so I haven't had any time to review those comments just yet. So my plan is to review that, take that back to and then ping a few people that were also interested and that were also at that meeting to see like where we're at on potentially merging it. Hopefully there's not too much more work that is needed, but yeah, that's kind of like where we're at right now. So it's just more of me reviewing and then taking that back to Spinnaker, kind of discussing where we kind of see the plans are for this RFC.
Okay. I'm definitely not trying to horn in on it or exert any opinion on it. The reason why I'm asking is because, just to remind everybody, from TOC perspective, I very much want to go to other projects and say, well, look at what Spinnaker did. And my goal is to have other projects do this as well. Obviously, Ben, I know Jenkins and Spinnaker are near and dear to your heart. So certainly concentrating on those and having some kind of, you or someone else talking about the value of it, what you're getting out of it, the benefits. And I think those two things, having Spinnaker and Jenkins, supporting CDEvents, having a user speak about this in glowing terms, that creates, fear of missing out, FOMO, and hopefully the others will follow. If more teams do that, if more projects do that, then it becomes even more compelling for our friends in commercial land. I'm thinking harness and the likes, octopus deploy, stuff like that. So that's my hope, and that's why I'm asking. So please don't think I'm, trying to rush or anything.
No. Like I said, like any questions or whatever that you have, just let me know. And then if you feel like you need a pressure, like don't worry about it. It's completely fine. But yeah, so I completely agree. And that's where I think we're trying to get it into. Well, my goal is to get it into Spinnaker so we can start using it internally at Apple. So I think, if we start showing that, companies like Apple are using CDEvents as well as, it's in Spinnaker, it's in Jenkins, that's going to be a pretty big message, I think, to all the other players. So I'm that's my hope, but we'll see.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
And right now, all across the world, there are product managers at CD companies that just got to chill.
Yeah, right.
It's just like, oh no, something's coming.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
thanks.
so yeah, no problem. And like I said, if I have any updates, I'll be sure, if you're not in this meeting, I'll ping you on Slack because I saw you were on there, and then if you had any questions, we can address that then. Sound good?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm subscribed to that GitHub issue, so I'm watching all the changes.
Okay,
and see what's going on. Just letting you know what my hope and dream is, hopes and dreams are, and what hopefully the benefit, the TOC can provide. And getting this with other folks, because it's all fine and good that you're working with Spinnaker, but we need to have CDEvents in it. Just I've got a it's silly not having projects working together. Just it's just a personal opinion. I hope it's shared.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, and I think too, starting, with Spinnaker will hopefully be the stepping stone that we need. And then I think there, because now that we have a CD tool like Spinnaker, maybe the next focus, like you were saying, Robert, is maybe Jenkins or maybe even GitHub Actions, because I do have some contacts at GitHub that I could reach out and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And maybe even having a plugin that generates CD events, because I know you can have like different plugins in GitHub, so that might be an option as well.
All we need is one. You have one commercial vendor doing this,
right?
They all
exactly.
Yeah, that's it's 10% new cutting edge stuff, 90% not falling behind from a PM perspective. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So speaking about GitHub Actions, wasn't there some initiative by, was it Brad, who was about to do some GitHub Actions integration with CDEvents?
Oh, I have no idea, but
trying to find that issue. Someone wrote it, but maybe I can't do it now on the fly. I was thinking also when you discussed there on the Jenkins or Spinnaker, of course, but the other tools that could follow. I know that Jenkins X has a GSOC initiative proposed where to integrate with CDEvents. I'm not sure their timeline when they will decide on what projects to take on and so, but we could of course hope that Jenkins X would go for some such GSOC activity during the summer. So we could have Jenkins X there as well. That would be cool. Yeah, good. Great. No, but I totally agree. It would be fantastic if a company like Apple would embrace CDEvents and say we really need this and we are using it or whatever.
Well, and it's not just also motivation from, it doesn't just motivate the other projects to integrate with CDEvents. It's also other folks that, look at
people with
Apple
money
and admire them, or like, hey, what are they doing? Maybe we should do that. It's the whole value of the, state of DevOps report that Dora was putting out for years, hey, look at your peers. And that's really what we do over in CD land and DevOps. We gauge ourselves against others and see how we're doing.
Right.
Hopefully. In theory.
Oh yeah.
Well, gang, I'm going to bounce. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for joining.
All right. Thank you.
So, do we have anything else to handle today, or do you think we're fine now?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
I think I've emptied my mind at least.
Yeah. And like I said, like I'm just amped for SDK generation, because like I've wanted that when you guys first started talking about SDKs, but I was like, you guys only had one SDK, so I wasn't sure yet. But now that it seems like that boat is kind of like, is full steam ahead, I definitely think this is something that's going to be awesome to do. Like I just enjoy code generation, to be honest, so that's why I'm like amped for it. But yeah,
I think it's very cool. I'm just think that there are some problems with it, but of course some obstacles could be overcome, I hope.
no, definitely, it definitely can.
Yeah, it's not always a silver bullet, but often it could be, I guess.
Yeah. But no, I think we're pretty good here. So if we want to wrap this up, I'm totally okay with that.
I think this might be the thing I was after.
Oh, yeah.
GitHub to CDEvents translation. So
I remember Andrea mentioning this actually.
Yeah.
Okay,
so Mauricio and also Brad McCoy has been on to this.
Okay.
So I think Mauricio at least was interested in it. And then Brad McCoy, I don't think there is a pull request for it, is it? No. It's added to the 0.2 milestone, but I doubt it will be there, of course. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if we have anything there as well soon. Okay, good, cool. Then that's it for today then. Thank you for the discussions and have a good evening.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.